There is a river on this planet so deep it could swallow a 70-story building whole, so fast and so violent that the water itself behaves like a wall, slicing life apart the way a mountain range does. And at the bottom of its black, lightless canyon, creatures are dying in a manner that should be completely impossible for any river on Earth. When scientists finally dragged their instruments into the heart of the Congo, they expected to find nothing more than mud and silt. What they found instead was a lost world, and the deeper they looked, the stranger the truth became. But to understand what is really hidden inside the Congo, you first have to understand how different this river is from anything else on the planet. The Congo River winds nearly 3,000 miles across the very heart of Africa, crossing the equator not once, but twice. It drains a basin roughly 1.5 million square miles wide, the second largest river basin in the entire world, behind only the Amazon. Beneath its canopy sits the second largest rainforest on Earth, what scientists have come to call the planet's second set of lungs. It shelters some 75 million people and over 150 distinct ethnic groups. And yet, despite all of that enormity, enormous stretches of the Congo have never been properly studied. A national park the size of Belgium went completely unsampled by scientists well into this century. For a long time, explorers labeled this place on their maps with a single honest word: unexplored. But the real secret of the Congo is not its size. It is what happens near the very end of its journey. There are, in effect, two Congo rivers. For most of its length, more than 2,000 miles, the river is gentle and lazy, drifting across the basin without ever dropping more than a foot per mile. Then, in its final stretch, everything changes. The river plunges. In a furious 200-mile rush toward the Atlantic, it drops 12 feet every single mile. Over the last 60 miles alone, it loses more than 600 feet of elevation. This impossible plunge carves out some of the most violent rapids and deepest underwater canyons found anywhere on Earth. And this is where the story turns strange. For years, the people living along the lower Congo noticed something unsettling. Pale, ghostly fish kept washing up dead along the riverbanks. These fish had no color at all. Their eyes were shrunken, sometimes covered over entirely by skin. They looked like nothing that belonged in a sunlit African river. They looked like creatures dragged up from the crushing darkness of the deep ocean. When scientists finally examined them, they discovered something genuinely chilling. These fish had been killed by the bends, the same decompression sickness that can kill a human diver who surfaces far too quickly. Gas bubbles had formed inside their blood and their tissues as they were torn violently upward through the water. And that single detail changed everything. Because the bends only happens under extreme pressure, which meant these ghostly fish were living hundreds of feet beneath the surface, in a river. That is the moment researchers realized the Congo was hiding a secret in plain sight. It is not just deep. It is the deepest river on the entire planet. Measurements have already recorded depths of around 720 feet. That is enough to submerge a tall skyscraper with room to spare. And because the currents down there are so violent, so chaotic, scientists believe the true maximum depth may be even greater. The truth is, we simply do not know. We cannot reach the bottom. But it is not the depth alone that haunts the researchers. It is what lives down in that drowned canyon. At least 6 species of fish have been pulled from these depths, and every one of them shares the same ghostly blueprint. Elongated, serpentine bodies, no pigment at all, as white and colorless as polished bone, and reduced, nearly useless eyes, because in the permanent darkness at the bottom of the Congo, there is nothing left worth seeing. These creatures evolved inside a river in the exact same way creatures evolve in the black abyss of the ocean, in total darkness, under crushing pressure, completely severed from the world above. And here is the part that genuinely startled the biologists studying them. These ghost fish are not closely related to one another. They come from entirely different families: elephant fish, spiny eels, walking catfish. Yet all of them, separately and independently, evolved the very same blind, pale, stretched-out body. In science, this is called convergent evolution, when completely unrelated creatures arrive at the same design because they are forced to survive the same brutal conditions. The depths of the Congo made life repeat itself, over and over again, in the dark. But the Congo does not merely hide life, it actively creates it. The river is less than a mile wide in places, yet its currents are so overwhelmingly powerful that fish living on one bank can never physically reach the other. The water itself becomes an impassable wall. Populations get trapped on opposite sides, breed only with their own kind, and over countless generations drift apart until they become entirely separate species. This was the very first place on Earth where scientists discovered animal populations divided not by a mountain range or an ocean, but purely by the raw force of a river. The numbers are almost hard to believe. The lower Congo makes up only 2% of the basin's area, yet it holds nearly 30% of its species, and roughly a third of those exist nowhere else on the planet. Almost 800 species of fish have already been recorded, and researchers still describe new ones on a regular basis. In a single decade, scientists documented more than 700 new species of plants and animals across the basin. New monkeys, new birds, new orchids, new crocodiles. Even today, large mammals are still being found for the first time. Just recently, researchers formally identified an entirely new species of monkey deep in the forests of the Democratic Republic of Congo, a creature the local people had known about for generations before any scientist ever arrived. But of all the things said to live inside the Congo, there is one that no scientist has ever been able to confirm, and it is the one that the people of this land have feared the longest. Deep in the flooded swamps of the Congo Basin, in a remote region roughly the size of New York State, generation after generation of local people have spoken of an enormous creature dwelling in the rivers and the hidden pools. They call it Mokele-mbembe, a name that translates roughly to the one who stops the flow of rivers. Witnesses describe something the size of an elephant, with a long, flexible neck, a powerful tail, and a body unlike any animal walking the earth today. To many who have heard these accounts, the description sounds disturbingly familiar. It sounds like a dinosaur. The legend reaches back centuries. It was first written down by a French missionary in the 18th century, who recorded tales of creatures leaving footprints 3 feet wide. In the years since, the region has drawn an endless parade of expeditions. Biologists, adventurers, dreamers, even a team sent by the Smithsonian. They scanned the rivers with sonar. They questioned villagers for miles in every direction. They combed the flooded swamps around a remote lake called Tele. In 1981, one expedition returned claiming to have casts of footprints and recordings of sounds no known animal could make. A Japanese film crew in 1992 captured blurry, trembling footage of something large moving through the dark water. And yet, despite more than a century of relentless searching, no one has ever produced a single piece of undeniable evidence. No body, no clear photograph, no fossil, no bone. The overwhelming majority of scientists are deeply skeptical. They believe these sightings are almost certainly cases of mistaken identity. Ordinary animals like elephants, hippos, and crocodiles, glimpsed through the fog and the reeds, distorted by distance, by fear, and by the desire to believe. The Congo is vast, and it is dark, and it is deeply disorienting. It plays tricks on the eyes of anyone who enters. But here's what makes this story worth telling. Even if the great beast of legend is only a legend, the truth that scientists have actually uncovered inside the Congo is stranger than the myth could ever be. A river deeper than we can measure, a sunless canyon filled with blind, white creatures, evolving alone in the dark, a living laboratory where entirely new species are still being discovered, hidden away in a jungle that we have barely begun to explore. We like to imagine that the age of discovery is over, that every corner of the earth has already been mapped, named, and explained. The Congo stands as a quiet rebellion against that belief. There are still places on this planet where the ground beneath our feet is a mystery, where entire worlds of life persist in the darkness, beyond the reach of our instruments, surviving by rules we are only just beginning to grasp. So here is the question I want to leave you with. If a river this vast, this central to human life, can still hide blind, pale monsters in a canyon 700 feet deep, what else might be out there, waiting in the places we have not yet learned how to reach? I want to hear your answer. Leave it in the comments below. If this journey into the Congo stirred something inside you, share it with someone who loves the unknown as much as you do. And subscribe, because the next mystery we chase down might be the one that changes how you see this world forever. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and never believe the map is finished. I am Arif Hasan, and this is AH History.